let's go to this report from CBS News that talks about the effects of them doing this in Washington, D.C.
Nearly 500 federal agents, including from the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, have already been deployed, which former Homeland Security official Tom Warwick says is risky.
Taking FBI agents off of organized crime cases, terrorism, and other kinds of cases to do street patrols, that's not the best use of a highly trained FBI agent.
You think this could be a distraction?
It really looks as though a lot of this is performance.
I think it can't be more clear that this president is all about performative gestures to make it seem like something that it's not. He's been talking about tariffs as if they're doing something that they're not. He's been talking about ending wars all over the world as if he's doing something that he's not. And now he's talking about fighting crime in a city where it's way down because he's going to point out 2 instances of crime that happen in every city in the country and say, this is where it's disastrous. Let's go a little bit more about the details of how it is that this is actually hurting fighting crime more in many other ways.
This is about control and distraction for Donald Trump. If he were serious about cutting crime, he wouldn't be proposing cutting $400 million from the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Department to regulate and help with guns, or cutting $500 million from the FBI, 700 agents, or the DEA with drug enforcement, or the Office of Violence Against Women, $100 million from there, right? This is about control. First, he went for the press, then he went for the universities, then he went for the lawyers, then the federal workforce, and now it's the cities. This is about him having control, making an example out of D.C. He's going to move on to these other cities, by the way, that also, as you mentioned, have the plummeting homicide rates that D.C. does, and also to distract from the Epstein files like he's been doing with all these things that he's been rolling out.
So if he's cutting all of this money from all these law enforcement agencies, how is he backing the blue? I remember when people were saying defund the police, they were seen as anti-American and wanting an increase in crime. So now is this guy, which by the way, never effing happened. Joe Biden did not defund the police. In fact, he increased funding for police, and so did many other districts and cities all over the country. They increased funding for police. Police departments that, by the way, buy old military equipment that wasn't used that much, tanks and shit like that, to run into their police departments so they can have a small military state on whatever city that they control that they're supposed to be actually serving. But back to Dan Coe's points about taking these hundreds of millions of dollars out of these law enforcement agencies, how is that backing the blue? The only way to back up this type of stuff and agree with it is to deny reality. So I'm going to go to the mayor of one of the cities that he's looking to expand this police state onto and send the military towards, and that's Baltimore. And you won't be surprised that the mayor of Baltimore is also a black person. And you won't be surprised again. Crime rates are also down there too.
But a military presence in Washington, D.C., is that the right way to fight crime here, given your experience in Baltimore?
No, and I think we all know that, right? And we all know what the president is doing is really just spitting this right-wing propaganda and using the media in the bully pulpit of the highest office of the land to push things that we know. No one in D.C., my sister mayor is not saying that they don't have issues to work on, but the reality is that D.C.'s violent crime is at a 30-year low. And quite frankly, that's the case for cities around the country. I think it's very notable that each and every one of the cities called out by the president has a black mayor. And most of those cities are seeing historic lows in violent crime. In my city, in Baltimore, we have the fewest amount of homicides through this date on record. That's 50 years, a 50-year low. Maybe we are too far gone from the broken right-wing policies of zero-tolerance policing and all the things that did not make our city safer for all those many years. But we know that having the military there is not the way to do it. The way to drive down violence in cities has been proving. Mayors across the country have brought together law enforcement, the legal community, the actual community, the community violence intervention work to reduce violence across this country and cities to lows that we have not seen in decades. The president could learn a lot from us instead of throwing things at us.
And it's that kind of normalcy and intelligence and thoughtful agendas that this president wants nothing to do with because he doesn't think. He's looking for power. There's an agenda, and everything he does is to get to that point. So as you continue to take and suction all of the resources out of the country and then put it to more law enforcement, you're going to get more crime. because people are desperate. And as people don't have anything like normal necessities, even education, that was one of his big pitches. Let's destroy education in this country even further than we've already destroyed it already, so that people have less likely of a chance for those opportunities for this American dream that we're always talking about is so specific and detailed to this country. So once we take all those resources away, as they did even more with that bill that they passed to give more money to rich people that don't even need it. In fact, to continue to control us in many ways as possible, they ignore actual ways that crime is lowered. I mean, there's studies on how crime is lowered. There's studies on how people do better with education and in schools. We know all that stuff. And they keep taking all those things away. Do you think they don't realize what they're doing? Or they're just not thinking about what it is that we're seeing right in front of us? It goes back to the debate talk. You don't have to debate with people who know what you're saying. They just don't want to do it because the objective is to not make things better. It's to keep things worse. Let's go back to Dan Coe.
The reality is, study after study shows that the way you actually reduce violence in the long term is invest in young people and invest in people who don't have means. Donald Trump just announced that he's cutting the Job Corps program that invests in at-risk youth to get them jobs.
Show me a city where it's worked.
Let me finish, please. Medicaid, he's slashing. Medicaid expansion shows to reduce violence up to 10%. He cut $4.5 billion from early youth education intervention programs. These are the things that in the long term make all of us safer.
So
he's cutting people off at their knees before they even have a chance.
Totally,
So if he were serious, he would be investing in our future. That's how you reduce violence.
I mean, come on. Again, that argument doesn't need to be said either. Let's keep it real. He's not investing in anything as far as giving the country something to build off of. He's dismantling it. And he's putting it in ballrooms and paving over rose gardens and gold-plated tacky in the Oval Office. That's where it's going. He's made billions of dollars since he was in office, he and his family. Do we not see that? Because, you can deny it, but it doesn't mean the reality is any different. The same Baltimore mayor, Brandon Scott there, he's also talking about how actual ways to bring down crime in cities because it's worked.
This isn't the first time on this rodeo, but the reality is that we all know this is a distraction. The president does not want the American people to hear him answer questions about the economy or the Epstein files or that the country has lost its state in the world or that we're a less safe nation because of some of the actions that he has taken. And what he's doing is dog whistling through these right-wing propaganda and, quite frankly, racist viewpoints that they have about these cities and trying to convince the American people that what they know is not true. The reality is no mayor is out here saying that we don't have to deal with crime. That's our number one issue that we deal with each and every day. Yeah. But what we are saying is that right now we're safer than we have been in decades, in my lifetime, in most cities. And that's something that each of these mayors should stand on and something the president should be coming to work alongside them to continue that partnership, which, by the way, has included the local federal law enforcement agencies over these past 4 to 5 years. Why disrupt that simply to push your own agenda? Do what's right for the people.